On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, the Oklahoma City Thunder bring their own juice against the Washington Wizards and try to reverse some recent history against the Houston Rockets.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for InsideTheThunder.com, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. Email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder bringing their own juice against the Washington Wizards, getting the win, taking care of business, and previewing today's Rockets game. Listen, this is going to be a YouTube-only pod because we're switching some things on the back end for the podcast, which podcasts will start to populate again Monday afternoon. So the Rockets recap will be on the podcast feed in the afternoon. YouTube, of course, will be just like normal. But still, even though we can't get this on the podcast because we're switching some things, wanted to have a recap show of the Washington game. So it's going to be very short, very sweet, and very to the point. But the bottom line is Oklahoma City continues to hold that title belt as they continue to win on this 4-game winning streak. And they were able to just come out against Washington. And I think that the biggest thing about this win was that they kind of showed you another sign of a good team. So we talked against the Clippers game. We talked about how the Thunder had that avalanche run and that good teams and great teams are able to just overwhelm you at times and take games that are highly competitive games and you look up and all of a sudden it's a blowout. Great teams are able to do that. Great teams are also able to do what they did against the Wizards. Look, Thursday's game had a ton of just juice to it, had a ton of emotion behind it just organically. Like you automatically had two of the best teams in the Western Conference playing each other. It was your first game back from All-Star break. The crowd was a playoff atmosphere crowd. It was just all great in that game. Whereas Friday, both teams are on the second night of a back-to-back. You're playing one of the worst teams in the NBA versus one of the best teams in the NBA. And the crowd, I think that the crowd was good in the sense of when you factor in who they were playing and everything, but the crowd was very reactionary. They didn't give you a ton to feed off of until you actually made shots and everything else. So you really had to, after sleepwalking through the first few minutes, you really had to generate your own juice and bring your own intensity to this game. And that's how you separate yourself from losing games to teams like Washington, who you shouldn't lose to beating them very handedly, is by taking the approach of finding ways to energize your own team. And that's a J-Dub and one with J. Will hyping him up. That's a Kenrich Williams corner three. It's all those things that stack together that eventually turn the tide in a game where, again, it was just sloppy at the beginning, kind of feeling each other out at the beginning. And then OKC goes on a run. They eventually get up by 46 points. They were on it in this game. 3 lead changes, 4 times tied, but the Thunder eventually wrestled away control about a quarter of a way into the first quarter, and then they never looked back, and they blew out Washington. They shot 59% from the floor, 50% from 3, and 81% at the free throw line. Just incredible stuff. Both teams scored 58 points in the paint. The Wizards had about 4 more second chance points, and fast break points were actually tied as well, for the most part. It was 24-23 Washington. But it was a three-point shooting that just really allowed the Thunder to pull away from Washington. The Thunder were plus 10 on the glass. The Thunder have never lost the rebounding battle with Gordon Hayward in the lineup. That's pretty interesting, or, it's a stat that exists but doesn't really mean anything other than just it's being cool that he has contributed on the boards. In this game, he got 6 more rebounds for the Thunder, who ended up winning the rebounding battle by 10. I think that the 3 things we're going to discuss in this game was the bringing your own juice thing, Shea got to 30 points in 29 minutes by only missing 7 shots. And then Chet Holmgren, he was ultra aggressive again, like back-to-back days where he was ultra aggressive and attacking smaller guards and attacking mismatches and using his shoulder and using his body to generate some contact and create space for himself on the bump. And I think that was really, really good from Chet Holmgren. And then you look around also and you see, Kenrich Williams, another good game from him off the bench, another good Lou Dort shooting game. He's shooting over 50% from 3 in the last 4 games. All have been wins. Whenever Lou Dort shoots the ball well, things tend to turn for Oklahoma City. And then, Casey Wallace really got off the bench. And overall, the Thunder just stuck together after a little sloppy 5-minute stretch, got a timeout in there, and they were able to rout the Wizards in this game. So there was not much to talk about other than the Thunder taking care of business. But I did want to get something out there because we're not able to get podcasts out right now because of some back-end stuff. But we'll be back on Monday to get it all done and get it all uploaded. Now, YouTube, nothing will change. You'll still get the Rockets podcast for your commute, but on the actual podcast platforms, it'll have to wait until in the afternoon on those platforms. So be ready for that change as well. Now, the Washington game was a great example of the Thunder taking care of business. The Houston game is going to be interesting because the Thunder have struggled with Houston in recent history. The Thunder have struggled. They haven't won a season series against Houston since the 2020-21 season. And, last game against Houston this year was whenever the first time that you saw Josh Giddey get defended exclusively by a center, and it really threw off the feng shui of the Thunder offense. And they're trying to change those two things. I'm very interested to see how the Thunder react to, assuming that the Rockets are going to use the same strategy defensively on Josh Giddey, how the Thunder react to that, and could they put him more as a screener? Could they move him more away from the ball, get him more actions where he's going toward the rim and everything else, instead of just sitting in the corner shooting threes or waiting for open threes. I'm interested in that. I'm interested to see kind of how they change their lineups, if at all, whenever that happens. But it'll be a fun game. You're going to play the Rockets in a baseball-style series and play them again on Tuesday. So we'll have a lot to talk about with the Rockets this week. But again, it was just a very short podcast, kind of video, I guess I should say, because it's not really a podcast right now because of the back-end stuff. But I didn't want to get something out there. Really good game against Washington. I think that the Thunder were able to take care of business, and everyone really played to their standards, and the Wizards were not able to get loose. I mean, you saw a few bucket getters get some buckets, but they eventually stalled out and just couldn't really do much. Shout out to Keontae Johnson and Adam Flagler for playing both games of the doubleheader on Friday. It was a cool experience for Flagler, of course, to get his NBA debut in that game. I was hoping he was going to nail one of those threes. Bismack Biyombo made his debut and immediately comes in, and he goes out there and looks like a grown man and uses his physicality and throws his weight around to get some rim deterrence, something that makes him a great situational player for Oklahoma City off the bench. I think that this was more so a situation, obviously, where it's a blowout, so you might as well let him get his feet wet and get introduced to the Thunder crowd and kind of just get his feet back under him. He hasn't played again since December. Same thing as Gordon Hayward, only his was because he got cut, not because he got hurt from Memphis. So it was a fun game. Obviously, if you're a Thunder fan, it was very fun because the Thunder blew them out. But it was fun to kind of see this team learn and grow from experiences. I mean, you look at what they did against Detroit whenever they went to Detroit and lost. They didn't have their own juice. They didn't bring their own juice. They were lackluster the whole night, and it cost them a win against Detroit, who's the worst team in the NBA. And you played the second worst team in the NBA, and you were able to get back on track. And I shouldn't say back on track because they've been winning 3 in a row, but you're able to kind of course correct that issue from Detroit, which I thought was really good. I think that the most encouraging part about this team is that day in and day out, they continue to rapidly improve things that they struggle with, right? Think about the beginning of the year. The beginning of the year, the whole conversation was, they can't hold on to big leads. They can't hold on to big leads. And now they're not only holding on to big leads, they're expanding big leads and getting blowout wins. Again, going back to the Detroit game, you lose to a team who's the worst in the NBA because you just do not have your normal intensity on the defensive end. You course correct that immediately when you play this bad team in Washington. And so their ability to fix an issue and plug a hole on the ship, I think that is really a testament to how good they are as a complete ball club and how good they are as a team. And they'll continue to show that. Now they've got to do it again. Like, how can you course correct against Houston, who had that good game against you earlier this year and really threw off your offense with the way that they defended you. Houston, of course, has lost 7 of the last 10 games, so they're sputtering a little bit. Can you capitalize on the road on Sunday afternoon? But we're going to talk about it all after today's show, after today's game. And again, YouTube audience, you guys won't be affected really. It'll come out at night. That way it's ready for you in the morning and all day. Podcast audience, it will not be out until the afternoon because we're just not allowed to post anything till the afternoon. But still, it's going to be a fun podcast. It's going to be a fun recap. And Houston means that I'm one day closer to you. Until next time, be good and be good to one another.